believe it or not, he is the world's youngest chief digital officer. He just had a birthday, and he's 22 years old. So I want you to give a warm welcome, please, to Gordon Ching.
Thank you. So basically, my presentation, the key question I'm trying to answer is, how do you do digital transformation amongst an organization comprised of 18 to 30-year-olds only across 126 countries and territories with 100,000 members. So my key thing right now is that I was born around this time, and if you remember Windows 95, this is kind of when I was born. And I was watching some of the previous CDO presentations, is the fact that they were saying I'm an early adopter, but I could say I'm a digital native born on the internet. My social network before Facebook was World of Warcraft, and this was a game that taught me so much about social networking before it became extremely popular. I don't know if there's gamers in this room, but I can tell you this game can teach you so much. So I come from kind of a world not too different from any of us. It's really a world where I grew to know, where all of my friends were online. And this has huge implications for how we run the organization when every young person demands everything to be digitized. In a world where school and education is being doubted, and if it's still relevant in training us to become prepared for the future. And this is why I feel like I'm very honored to be a part of AIESEC, who is really pushing the boundaries of learning and development for a young person beyond the classroom. And really about a generation where multiple experiences are shared together. Not only is it just divided by generations, but now generations are merging together to really create a sense of shared experiences. And lastly, it's a world where everyone can be a creator, an entrepreneur. They can make things happen. And anyone, even who's 10 years old, can make a huge difference on the world. So really, I've seen a lot of kind of discussion on millennials and this kind of stereotypical view of them as this me generation. And I think it's a very interesting discussion that when I work with employers on how to really shape up their kind of youth strategy, it's really them not really understanding what the characteristics and behaviors of young people are, so they can develop strategies that empower and enable millennials to thrive in the workplace. And when I was reading a little bit more on kind of the gossip of millennials, New York Times was kind of saying how they're these kind of Instagram followers and dogs and cat memes and disruptive people. But for me, I think this is a really exciting time where new things are happening. And really, the trends are there. 75% of the workforce will be comprised of millennials by 2025. And this is kind of like a tsunami of young people rushing to your doors inside your organization, demanding these kind of new changes so they can be the best within your company. So here, my key lessons here are sharing 5 lessons of what AIESEC is, and we believe that these are some of the lessons that can be learned by other businesses. And in short, AIESEC is a global youth-run not-for-profit, completely run by young people, providing university students with experiences to develop themselves into full potential leaders across the world. And we also work with employers to ensure that they're getting the right talent, ranging from technical to management to business, to really ensuring that the pipeline of leadership is continuing in their organization. So a key statistic that really struck out to me was that digital transformation is imperative within organizations within the next 2 years. And the fact that digital leaders are scraping and kind of trying to understand how to do this when considering that the majority of their workforce will become those millennial leaders. And for me, in this role of CDO, really what I found was this sense of waking up the world with what digital transformation is, walking to different departments and functions saying that, if we don't do this, we might not become relevant anymore. And it's kind of like summarized by this notion of a penguin smashing the drums on top of a polar bear. And it requires a little bit of courageousness and humility to kind of own up to this transformation. And the first lesson I really believe is super important in digital transformation that a lot of businesses seem to struggle with is kind of cross-collaboration across departments. When you're working on projects, to not be stuck up on who's doing what, but more focus on the outcomes and the actions and results. And the first thing I really believe is about bringing the right people together regardless of your titles. When I'm working with a lot of these employers, I find that they spend more time trying to allocate a lot of process and who's doing what and who's responsible for what, as opposed to identifying right away who is going to take us to the end of the line. And I think for AIESEC, for example, we work with so many different cultures, and sometimes the hardest thing is not the process, but actually the fact of understanding where they come from, listening, the context, and the cultural understanding that's really required for transformation to happen. Because I really believe transformation can be extremely easy within one geographic location. But if you're trying to do something like AIESEC across this huge global geographic, cultural understanding plays a huge role in ensuring that it's not focused so much on the title, but what you can bring to the table. And the second is really not waiting for a meeting room to just do it. And I think there's a sense of action orientation in young people where they just want to get up and go and try it. And I think for this, it's looking at like when you have an idea, we often find ourselves on Skype at 11 p.m. in the night saying, hey, do you have an idea? I have this really bright idea that I want to share with you. And we jump on these calls with 10 people, and we immediately share and create actions from there. We no longer wait for these meeting rooms because in AIESEC, our offices across the world, and really we don't have these physical offices that just help everyone come together in specific places. So I think tools like Skype, for example, are increasingly transforming the way we communicate. Secondly is the culture of learning, innovation, and change. A key statistic is really around companies are missing digital skills. A talent gap is humongous. And really, how can we transform that when education has yet to keep up with the pace of digital transformation? I really believe that when I first joined AIESEC, for example, or maybe your kid who's 18-year-old or 20-year-old, they may see some booth like this on a university campus, and they're wondering, what is this organization? What can they do for me? And for me, when I look at it 4 years behind me, was the fact that when I joined this organization, I was a first-year university student. I came fresh out of high school. I had no clue what digital transformation meant, but I joined because I wanted to connect with a global community of like-minded individuals who wanted to make a positive impact on society. And that was really it. I wanted to make new friends. And from joining this kind of circle, I really learned that experiential learning is really key to doing everything. And what I saw from the previous generation was a lot of instructions lists, rules and manuals, such as the IKEA, how to build your furniture. But when you're thinking about digital transformation, there's no clear roadmap of how to achieve that. And also, like when you're 18-year-old, you have no clue what you're kind of looking for in the next decade. So this notion of experiential learning is key to enabling success. As one survey we just recently did called the You Speak survey identified that 73% of entrepreneurial young talent identify experiential learning as their #1 way of learning new skills. And surprisingly to me, the last one was actually e-learning on online classrooms. So the notion of experiential learning, I think, is really ingrained in our behavior because we look at things such as video gaming. When we look at the classroom kind of structure, it doesn't really enable us to go out there and explore new things, learn by failure, and from those lessons we can gain from success, as opposed to just having teachers tell us this is right, this is wrong, but really there is no right answer, but it's up to you to find the journey to get there. And I think innovation should not be singular across just one global headquarter or a team of extreme specialists. Sometimes innovation can come from even the newest employees who have no clue what the organization is all about yet, but sometimes they bring an external perspective that can help make a big difference. So sometimes when I work with these leaders, I often find that they have a set agenda when they're looking at innovation. When they ask us for ideas, they already know the answers, so they're not really asking us to come up with new ideas, but they want to validate themselves. So what I found when doing kind of discussion groups or innovation groups is to just let people think what they want and don't judge them right away, because innovation can sometimes come from the most radical or revolutionary ideas that seem insane at first, but at the end of the day, you realize these are some of the ideas that no one has thought about in the organization yet and are the ones that will make the biggest difference. And transparency is extremely key with an organizational kind of generation, kind of demographic coming in who are born on social media, see everything on Google and on the internet. They search anything and it's available to them. So for us, it's changing an entire organization who before you cannot really see all the internship opportunities or the leadership opportunities unless you pay the membership fee. But the technology system that we're launching, literally that enables any young person to go on a platform to search for internship opportunities, whether it's Google, Apple, or at a nonprofit in a more developing region, to take kind of ownership of their own experience. So we're providing this platform really as an aggregator and facilitator of their leadership journey by providing them all these opportunities up front, as opposed to hiding it behind kind of a glass wall, a kind of castle. So with 100,000 members across the world, sometimes the structure of a monolithic, scary corporation can be real. And when I think about bigger corporations like Microsoft, Unilever, Google, sometimes they can seem these big structures that I don't really want to go into because they don't seem friendly, entrepreneurial, or enables me to take big risk. And a key thing for me is really thinking about how do I transform that to this and enabling anyone to see the organization in and out. But at the same time, it requires a little bit of courage and bravery because you can easily become attacked on because everyone can see your data. They can see every opportunity. And for me, digital transformation is enabling that to turn to this. And amongst such a global demographic is the really interesting question I have here. And for me, it's looking at organizations who are trying to open their doors through social media and harnessing that to make sure that they're speaking to millennials and young people especially on what they really offer instead of hiding behind kind of corporate values. We value integrity, innovation, and that kind of corporate language that young people don't really resonate with. And for me, is really the open spaces to foster conversation between leadership and members. Most often, leadership only have conversations with the top executives, for example, in an organization. But we hold about 500 conferences every year on kind of discussions between leadership and membership to really understand what are the newest kind of members thinking about AIESEC, what are the young people struggling with today so they have the tools to equip themselves into the future. But it's really breaking down this notion of hierarchy, ensuring a flat organization so anyone can feel accessible, transparent, and also friendly to speak to leaders. So for example, I get Facebook messages from our even newest employees on like, hey, I have this burning idea for you, can I tell you? And I'm like, yeah, why not? But I think if you think from a corporate perspective, it's sometimes really scary to approach leaders. And I think this is really important because oftentimes we have ideas in meetings, but we're afraid to say any of them because there's intimidation from just having a senior title. And surprisingly to us, these informal tools of Skype, WhatsApp, Facebook, we've literally run an entire conference for 700 people once in Taiwan through Line. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's very similar to WhatsApp. We literally had these groups of 30 people, and that's how we communicate. It was no fancy communication system. It was just groups of Line and WhatsApp to really coordinate the things that needed to happen. And I think for us, these kind of informal tools really help facilitate a lot of best case practice sharing, failures and successes, really instantly so people can see them. And the funniest thing is a lot of our internal channels are actually on Facebook groups at the moment, is because young people spend so much time on Facebook and we're like, they're just naturally creating these groups where they share these ideas and oftentimes that's where we find some of the best ideas. Fourth one is ownership and responsibility. And I really believe that instead of showing someone just how to do something, you really want to throw them immediately into the sharp pen to teach them how to escape from there and learn from there right away. Because for us, really, you want immediate responsibility. When you first join AIESEC, for example, it's like you're this first-year university student, and you take on this responsibility for a specific job, and you have core KPIs that you measure yourself to. But for us, as we kind of grow into the organization, we understand, for example, there's a huge talent gap. And the only way we're only going to able to develop so many young people is if we give them this kind of playground to test, experiment, hack, fail, success. This is where they're going to learn about themselves and also of the world. And most importantly, that young people really have this sense of curiosity. They're the types of people, if you're looking at a problem, they won't just stare at it. They'll actually hop over the fence, curious about what's behind it. And for me, this is a huge, huge thing that is often overlooked. And if you're working with a lot of young people in your organization, let them solve some of your biggest challenges. Put them on the front lines, because they're the types of people who will do the dirty work. They will skip over the fence and look over that corner and see kind of the things that you may miss. And I really believe that sense of mentorship is really important, because young people may not have all the skills and experiences, but they have the eagerness and the courage and bravery to really take on that project. But you need to simply guide them. And an easy metaphor I often say is kind of like Gandalf and Frodo. Frodo had all the energy to go to Mordor, throw in the ring. Gandalf had all the experience and wisdom, and he guided him through that through the fellowship. And I think similar to this idea, it's kind of like that notion where you really want to provide that young person with that kind of circle of mentors and really to bring them on a journey of learning and development. And again, to reinforce this note is experiential learning really, I believe, is the future of learning, because it's really hard for education to keep up with all these trends, and I think decentralization of all this education and learning is going to be a huge, huge area in also corporate structures. Another key part is really the supporting training and development journey. So a lot of young people who go into organizations, I see, they maybe stay for 2 or 3 years, is often because they're seen as these kind of robots who pour out their talent and contributions, help drive some business value, but they don't really see a lifelong career with them because the experience they're having in there is not really a journey, but simply a transactional kind of point of their life. And And I think a key part of how we kept so many young people from 18 all the way up to 28, for example, for inside this youth-run organization, is a sense of leadership development journey. From day one, we learn about what their strengths and weaknesses are, how we can best put them in experiences that capitalize on that. And as they go forward, we check up on them over and over again to ensure that they have this journey. So if you're a corporate leader looking at some of your youngest talent, really see their learning and development journey as a key part of keeping them there, because they really want to learn and they want to do things fast. And you just simply need to provide them with the guidance, direction, and the structure to thrive. And for me, what I summarize as an AIESECer when they come out into the world to make an impact, they're kind of the types of people who are global citizens, who understand what it's like to work from the United Kingdom to someone in Africa, to someone in the Middle East, understanding these cultural kind of understanding pieces, but also the leadership capabilities to inspire people and how to lead them and motivate them, and not to just be a manager in a business, but actually to become a leader who can make the right decisions, but not always what's popular. Third one is also the technical know-how. This is extremely important, often hardest to find, because these are the specialists in your organization. But through AIESEC, I've learned digital marketing. I've learned how to transform an organization. But before this, I was studying human geography, and I had no clue what even marketing was. And for me, it's a lot of these AIESECers that you get are completely transforming the way I see what is required on paper in a resume versus what's actually needed within a job to succeed. It's not just saying you need a business degree and you can do this role, but it's saying what can you actually bring to the table as opposed to looking at only for the criterias. And the last one is purpose-driven. This is extremely important because young people don't just want to associate themselves with products, but they want to understand what your business is doing to make a world a better place. And it's not just saying that's a fluffy thing, but actually how does your product help improve the lives of others, for example. This is extremely important to communicate because this mission statement or the way you communicate your values across the world will really help attract the people to look at your organization as aspirational business. The last one is a shared understanding of the mission. How in the world can a youth organization run its operations across 126 countries and territories, completely decentralized decision-making, but also a sense of localization so every member is empowered to make their own decisions? This requires a very common belief in the broader mission so that everyone is aligned with kind of the belief, the idea, the imagination. So whatever journey they take there is aligned with that. Instead of saying, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, you do it this way. Here's the goal we're trying to get to. You take the journey and you go there on your own. We're going to give you the mentorship and guidance to get there. And that's how we kind of do the decision-making process. Such as, for example, when we do global decision-making, it's often done on, let's say, Adobe Connect, Skype, WhatsApp. When we're making decisions on voting for specific policies, for example, we often don't have to come to a full conference to make a decision. It can be all done virtually. And I think these are the types of things that will continue to reshape some of the businesses. And for us, this kind of mission statement that we have is extremely hard to comprehend because it was an organization founded at the end of World War II by college students who want to break down cultural barriers. And for me, it's looking at this mission, and I think, how do I exactly empower young people so they have the fulfillment to make humankind's potential? And it's, for me, it's this shared belief I share with so many other young people on how can we make this world a better place? We don't really know, but let's figure out together by learning and failing together. And I think it's this sense of experiential learning that's really going to help shape the next generation and the skills they will have. And in summary, I think these 5 lessons that I've learned so far in 4 months of my term have really helped shape the way I see the world and what's to come for business leaders to absorb as well in their businesses. And I think one of the most important ones is literally destroying that kind of stereotype you have on the next generation as entitled and privileged, but I think really seeing them as they just grew up in a whole different world, and sometimes it's a matter of a leader sitting down with them over coffee and listening, hey, what are the biggest challenges you have growing up? How can we help you? How can we ensure that as you grow up in the decades of your 20s that we're giving you the best abilities to ensure that you succeed? And I think these 5 lessons really will help transform the next 10 years, for example. So thank you. I wanted to rush a little bit because I know we're running tight on time, so thank you very much.